And I'll start sharing my screen. Um, so I hope you can see my screen now. And let's start from the beginning of our lecture. It's the rise and decline of US influence in the world. And actually, our topic will concentrate on the period after the World War II. And until nowadays, what's happened with the US is US still hegemon and could something turn into other way and which country potentially can become next hegemon. And the central question of our discussion of our class is today, is the US a declining hegemon? How has American influence evolved? What the theoretical lens reveals? So you remember we talked with you about different international relations schools like realism, liberalism, and constructivism. And today we will try to apply this school on the situation around the US. And also the Kiev context, it's mean Ukrainian context, what happened with our bilateral relationships and how it's impact the US internal and foreign policy. Okay, so I think it's clear. And traditions start with traditions of international relations approaches. So, first of all, we will start with the most influenced and the most popular theory of relationships is the realist school and what they propose to us. First of all, analyze when we analyze some forces like the US, all these different schools propose different approaches and different tools for analyzing. So you remember I said to you during our past class that realist approaches it's includes, for example, analyzing military forces, economical forces, and political forces, how political force could impact other regimes in other countries. Liberal theory of international relationships, they concentrate overall on economical process, yes, just economical process, and constructivist theories that appeared at the end of 20th century overall concentrate on context because context is important um, mm, for relations and for multilateral or bilateral relations between country. And what's proposed the realist school according to the US force. First of all, it's realist recognize that hegemon provide stability in the world, and both of followers of the school, like Karl Kinderbeck and Robert Gilpin, they argue that system, let's mean world system, requires a dominant power to function. So, if we come back to our theory of countries, how countries exist, and so on, you remember, guys, that we live in the Westphalian world. What does it mean? In 1648, after 100-year war, in Europe started a new era for international relations and for countries' negotiation. It's so-called Westphalian world or Westphalian approaches um, according to countries. And for us, it means that state, country becomes the main power of international relationships, and this still preserves until nowadays. Also, we can discuss that there are other agents or actors of international relations. For example, like transnational company. Yes. So you heard about companies that are estimated around 1 billion, sorry, 1 trillion dollars, and this their budget are much bigger than budget of some countries. For example, Apple. They estimate Apple about $1 trillion. Yes, capitalization. This company is around $1 trillion. And what say to us? It says that company, first of all, they has money and they have technology, and it means they have an impact also on international relationships. Or other example with Elon Musk. Maybe you remember or not, but 2023, yes, when he by his um, by her his asking here, one moment. By his asking, they turned off Starlinks, yes, around Crimea and Ukrainian South. And you remember the story, what's it provoked some stopping of uh, some actions in Ukrainian army, yes, because we started, uh, it's maybe correctly say, uh, reconquired, yes, reconquired our territory, come back our territory. And when Elon Musk turned off to Starlinks, it become complicated for us. And it's a question, maybe question to you for your thinking. So please think about that, like Elon Musk become uh, an actor of international relationships, and how this border is disappear, yes, in relations between countries and between private actors. So, can we say today that private actors and private company are also full recognized actors of international relationships? This question is questionable, we can say, yes. So, okay, come back to our realist reading. For stability in the world should be one hegemon who possess all these forces and regulate relationships between countries. Second point, it's imperial overstretch. So Paul Kennedy, yes, warns that global commitments inevitably outpace economic capacity. So it means that uh, global commitments around more than several actors could lead us to some economical crisis and economical degradation. That's also look of realist theory, because due to this theory there are some negotiation between big player, and also one player is that bigger even this big player who control processes in the world, and who control division of this world. So it means that when all this process come out from just these 10 forces under view of one big forces, yes, much bigger forces, it leads us to some for some um, weakness and global weakness also. Offensive realism. Yes, John Mearsheimer critiques liberal hegemony as a dangerous strategic delusion. What does it mean? It means that so-called liberal hegemony, we can recognize it like some kind of force of country which can negotiate with other, and it also could take into account their interests. Yes, and not also. It means that this hegemon not intervent into relations between other countries, but as you know, uh, and maybe it's not just sorry, some problem with one person. Um, uh, okay. I hope it's clear. I will also repeat it in Ukraine, so що тут означає? Мається на увазі? Мається на увазі, що ліберальна гегемонія вона якби передбачає врахування інтересів інших учасників процесу співучасті між країнами. Тобто, наприклад, це не втручання в зовнішні справи. От, наприклад, при Байдені, можна так сказати, була так звана ліберальна гегемонія, коли Штати не втручалися, вони не вводили війська, наприклад, ну або не атакували Іран для досягнення власних цілей. То при Трампі от якраз повернулася оця offensive realism, да? Коли фактично Штати намагаються, незважаючи на ну, якийсь там здоровий сенс навіть, але враховуючи власні інтереси, втрутитися в інші країни. And it means for us liberal hegemony. Power transition. Researchers like uh, Organsky, Ellison, and they say that some power transition, for example, to other hegemon, can lead us to uh, uh, Thucydides trap dynamics. It means that when we transit some power from the US, for example, to China, and when it happens according to some natural processes, for example, like economic growth of another actor, or for example, some gaining power in military forces, it leads to uh, natural transition from one force to another force, but also this scientists, yes, warn us that it could lead us to Thucydides trap, yes, when it could imbalance the world and imbalance other global powers that exist in this world and lead to the wars that we have now. And squandered unipolarity. Um, mm, yes, Steppenwolf argues that how the US mismanaged its post-Cold War moment. So after the World War, the US has had all possibilities to become one unipolar force, because European country and the USSR were devastated after the World War II, and the US they missed the moment when the USSR gained their power and become second forces, which interest also should be took into account. And Stephen Walt says that the US could manage this moment but they skipped it during some circumstances. Okay. and liberal reading. Yes, uh, um, another theory of international relations. So first of all, it's liberal international order. John Ekenberry emphasizes that strategic self-resistance to lock in long-term uh, restraint, sorry, strategic self-restraint to lock in long-term advantages. Yes, so it means that for achieving some long-term advantages, as they say, sometimes countries should be limited, yes, by something, by achieving some evident goals and some current goals for achieving some long-term goals. Yes, for example, we also can see this in relationships between US, European Union, and Ukrainians that yes, going around or for example, Israel. Israel is a really good example for this. So mm, from one side, natural friends of Israel are Ukraine and countries of European Union, yes, but and natural enemies for Israel are Iran and Russia. Yes, now it's Israel is in active war with Iran, but also Russia help and assist Iran in some way, some for some supplying and so on. But what's going around with all this situation? But Israel continue to refuse help Ukraine in some in the drone war and in some share with us military technologies. Why? Because they try to preserve this status quo for the period of warming relationships with Russia. And it means, and this logic of some liberal international order, when you stop, when you limit in acting and achieving some goals that are on the sea, yes, and for long-term advantages. Complex interdependence. So Robert Cohen and Joseph Nye, they argued about economy's alter state behavior. So it's also connected with my example with Israel. Uh, in the world of economy exist some complex interdependence due to liberal reading of US hegemony. And for us, it means that all economies are intertwined, yes, intertwined with each other. And it led to some interdependence. For example, as I said, with Israel, Israel refused to help Ukraine in the war uh, because it has dependence uh, from Russia. Yes, maybe in some trade, in trading, yes, in some economical cooperation, and so on. And this show how contemporary economy is interdependent. Soft power. The concept of soft power was developed by Joseph Nye, but also the concept of soft power is not just is not used by liberal theorists, but also it broadly used by constructivist theorists. And mm, maybe you know that it means attraction rather than coercion. So for achieving some goals, country can start wars. but in some way they can do it easily and without victims, just applying so-called soft power. So you remember we discussed about how Hollywood, Netflix, Bollywood, and so on impact today's society, economy, and so on. And this also a part of this soft power. So when you try um, to achieve your goals not by applying military forces, but just by applying some soft power forces, like like sharing movies, sharing culture, and so on. That's all about soft power. Democratic peace theory. It's also part of liberal theory, and Michael Doyle he argues on the pacific nature of liberal democracies toward one another. That's interesting concept, and maybe you remember that I said you that before 21st century there were wide uh, broad shared theories that countries where are McDonald's they not started the war between each other, and it's part of this liberal discourse. Тож, можливо, пам'ятаєте, я вам колись розповідав про те, що країни, в яких є Макдональдс, не вступають між собою в війни. Це концепт, який існував до 21 століття. Відповідно, він є частиною ось цієї ліберальної теорії міжнародних відносин. І when we talk about democracy, but you should understand that according to perspective of 2026, this concept is obsolete. So yes, it's old, just old, obsolete. Why? Because as shown in practice, countries where McDonald's could also start the war, and that's not a marker for wars for starting the wars or not, and entering in these wars. Institutional durability. The core claims that institutions make America power sticky and durable even as material dominance wins. Quite questionable thesis. Why? Because as you can see now, and as you can see under the governing of Trump, this concept could be uh, wasted because of institutional durability that preserved in the US for 3 centuries also could be broken by a governor who wanna broke all this institution. And but in some way it not cancel some kind of status of America's hegemon, but also maybe in several years and or in several decades we will see that all that Trump try to destroy now will lead us to situation when America will lose their status of hegemon. But according to liberal theory reading, institutional durability is important for gaining the status of hegemon. Okay, constructivist reading. Maybe it's one of my favorite reading of international relations because it include and it take into account the context where these relationships appeared. So first of all, ideas and identity. One of the developer of this theory, Alexander Wendt, and he demonstrates how legitimacy turns capability into true authority. So according to him, the most important part of any regimes is legitimacy. Why it's so important? First of all, when you have no mandate from your elections, you are not so durable when you have. Also, as you remember, we discussed about this topic that all uh, regime can't exist in the country that protest against this regime. So, in some way, it could be silent, um, how would say correctly, um, silent accords, maybe, yes, silent accords with this regime. Uh, but when population uh, not support it, it can't exist. So regime of Russia can't exist without support too. Or regime in Turkmenistan also can't exist without support. So for existing of regime should be some support. And Alexander went say that all exists just with legitimacy. The American Creed, so Samuel Huntington, Exploration in Who Are We of National Identity. So for you know that construction theory, it's more about what happens in your head than in the real world. So, for example, when you construct yes in your head that your country is superpower and possess this superpower, it could lead it also exists and becomes a part uh, mm, of governor mm, governor leitmotif, yes, and they started act themselves as superpower or hegemon. And Samuel Huntington says that first of all, that's all started from for responding the question, who are we? Structural power. Susan Strange, four phases. It's security, production, finance, and knowledge. So, for being and staying the superpower, you should have these four factors like security, production, finance, and knowledge. Exorbitant privileges. So Barry Eschengreen uh, says that dominance of dollar also provide first of all psychological power of super state. So in every country you can pay no okay, not in every country, but every country um, has an exchange their from their currency to dollar. And that's also an important factor of this hegemony because money that who sorry money that controls the world also uh, are part of the country that exerts this hegemony. Weaponized interdependence, that's also one of the complicated concept that was developed by Farrell Newman and Anno Bradford, and they say that um, some countries can create dependence from another countries and dependence for other countries by their internal governments and their internal laws. For example, Brussels effects. What does it mean? It means that in the EU, in the European Union, they developed laws that managed internal digital market and technological market. And some producers that exist in the US or in China, they should follow these rules. And following these rules create some effect of dependence from the European Union because, as we discussed from our previous lecture, European Union is one of the biggest actor, economical actor in the world, and these common rules create uh, create some and create some dependence for other country because technological producer can't produce products for European Union and for other countries separately because it's economically not argued. And in that way, they started to subalter all their production, uh, subalter to the rule for European Union and to create purchases for the whole world by according to the law of EU. Okay, and how to synthesize all this theory? First of all, uh, how we can apply it in 21st century and what we can take from all this theory. First of all, realism. It accounts for the raw distribution of material capabilities and military forces. So as we said, for realism, the most important is material and military. Liberalism explains the stickiness and durability generated by institutional lock-in. Uh, that's also good for us how to analyze countries. For example, according to institutional lock-in or and about their durability, but also it could lead us to some mistakes. And constructivism is reveals the legitimacy required to convert raw capability into recognized authority. It's like the main pillar of this theory that every strong government should based on a strong election support that it has. Okay, guys, so let's move to the main question, the rise of American hegemony. Foundations. So, as you know, foundation started after 1945 when the World War II was over. Why? Because in 1945, the GDP of the United States was roughly half of world GDP and holding two-thirds of global gold reserves. So you remember that after the war, Europe and other countries were completely destroyed. But military actions didn't um, didn't uh, so on the territory of the US, there was no military actions, and it preserved the US from economical decline. But Europe and USSR were in ruins, and their all industrial capacities also were in ruins. Also, the US was one of the possessor of an atomic weapon, That's also take some points to their power. But unlike previous great powers, the US did not translate this absolute preponderance into an empire of direct rule. Instead, it built a complex institutional architecture to cover global relations. So, before the US, there were also some hegemon in the world. For some time, it was Spain. For another decade, the power gained Britain, yes, for example. But how they implement their power? First of all, by direct rule and by direct government of colonial territories. US did act like that. Why? Because first of all, uh, they had another logic, and uh, that was not time of empires more. After the First World War, as you remember, most of the empires stopped their existence, so there was no other possibility to restore it. And after the World War II, the US completely understand that to build some hegemony, you can do it without direct intervention into other countries and without any conquest of the territory. You can do it in your head, first of all. And they did it. So what they did, they were uh, economical hegemon, and they hold uh, half of the whole world GDP, and it helped him to build some new economic architecture, and designer of this economic architecture US was Bretton Woods system. So what it requires, this system. First of all, on July 1944, 44 allied nations gathered to design the post-war economic system. So you remember that a lot of countries were ruined, and they need some investments for recovering. A new institution. So they established the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. So this institution we know until our days, and their main function to help recover after the World War II. A dollar standard created a dollar gold exchange standard, rendering the US dollar to de facto global currency. Before this current exchange, the standard was one gold that help to keep uh, all currencies on the stage, yes. But in 1944 they have changed it, so just in from this date, just dollar can't be exchanged by gold, just one currency. And the foundation, this system becomes the platform upon which all subsequent American economic influence was built. So uh, America built their dominance on economic influence, not military intervention. And Truman and Marshall Plan. So first, it means recovery plans for containing Soviet expansion and for recovering Europe. So Truman Doctrine, it's about a sweeping commitment to containing Soviet expansion globally. So they started to research allies all over the world, but allies won't something in exchange. For example, money or investment or new industries that Soviet Union proposed. And US started the global company all over the world that should help preserve the US power globally by investing some money into economy. But it was global initiative. Another initiative, Marshall Plan, it concentrate on Europe. And for example, it invested around 13 billion into European reconstruction. You should understand that today 13 billion dollars and in 1947, that's other budgets, and in 20th century, it was much bigger than today. So it was a huge investment into Europe, strategic investment. It successfully rebuilt devastated allies and integrated them economically. So when the US started rebuilding all these industries, they oriented on their own industries and economies and make them interdependent. So, for example, some industries were dependent by American technologies, or some industries were dependent by supplying some kind of material. So, just American factory can work with that, for example. Captive markets, it's generated robust integrated markets hungry for American exports. It's also intertwined with strategic investment. So when you build some infrastructure, just be ready that all these industries uh, become depend on you. NATO architecture. That's other important stage of the American foreign policy. What it means? First of all, it means building the global union for defense and for contained Warsaw Bloc and contained the USSR. So North Atlantic Treaty was a transformation of a security community into a formal military alliance. So before this treaty, of course, country cooperate in military actions, but this treaty it's like funded, funded juridically and formally all these relationships and in some way cooperation and investment of countries of this union become mandatory. Article 5, it's the collective defense that currently converted American nuclear protection into a public good for Western Europe. So, for a long time, Europe has no um, nuclear power, and they were under umbrella of the US because the USSR, even during the World War II, started their development and their research in nuclear power, and they achieved success. And just over several years after the World War, the USSR was second gainer of nuclear power. And in Europe, there were no um, any research or development, so they were under the umbrella of the US. GET. It's complemented the security architecture by institutionalization, widespread trade liberalization. So you maybe know this association like Union of Liberal Trading, and this liberal trading, it's like was part of this NATO treaty for countries for cooperating and for trading, and it's also lead to some dependence by the US. Nixon shock. So, in some way, uh, in 1971 started the crisis of the monetary order. First of all, Robert Griffin identified a fatal contradiction. American deficits were necessary to supply global liquidity, but those same defects undermined confidence in the dollar convertibility to gold. And President Nixon unilaterally suspended the convertibility of the dollar into gold, effectively ending the fixed rate Bretton Woods system. So after this crisis, dollar stopped to be converted from gold to dollar and inverse. And now there are no currencies that are aligned with golden standard by some exchange, and so our money are not no more based on golden power. Yes, so we can't say that today exists some standard in okay and paradoxical continuity. Despite the end of gold convertibility, dollar hegemony did not collapse. It continued due to three primary factors. First of all, it's deep liquid financial markets in the USA, massive global network effects, and the absolute absence of viable alternative currency. But yes, as you understood, there are no other alternative for dollar currency for today. So still today, from your own experience, dollar is operating. Okay, Cold War soft power. So we talked a lot about this context, but I will repeat you that first of all, um, mm, mm, first of all, America not just exerts their influence on other countries by economic or military forces, but also they provided large network of soft power tools like cultural weapons. It's Hollywood, jazz, rock and roll, Coca-Cola, blue jeans. Yes, that were like marker of liberal world and make uh, mm, some symbols of liberty in a communist country. Elite education. So American universities successfully attract foreign elites, integrating future post-colonial leadership into the US worldview. So a US university attract the best students due to their prestige, and it also provide for America some chance to form new global elites by their standards. And in some way, if you finished university like Cambridge, it's more chance that yes, like Cambridge, and for example, you become a president or prime minister. It's a very big chance that you will cooperate and negotiate with the US in some way of good relations. Um, Contradictions. Yes, cover-tops in support for authoritarians contradicted the liberal narrative, ceding legitimacy defects. So, in some way, mm, even if it's first realms that you built all around liberal democracies, but if we said if there are some interests, for example, in achieving goals in authoritarian countries, the US also invest in these countries and also developed tiny relationships. For example, in Iran, first coup, yes, happened in 1953, and in Chile it happened in 1973. So all this cooperation and all this investment not means that this country preserve liberal and democratical development that history has shown. Okay, guys, I propose make 10 minutes break because I feel myself not really good today. Maybe you have now some question to me. Тож, є якісь питання?
Поки немає.
Добре. Okay, and maybe like logical. I hope you can hear me now. Yes, you can hear me now. So, and like logical end of all the story, it's the Soviet collapse. Yes, and we not discussed with you, but I will say several words about Francis Fukuyama, The End of History. It's he says it's the final triumph of liberal democracy and free market capitalism over all alternative ideologies. So, according to Francis Fukuyama, there will be no more needs in Western countries, for example, to uh, to have war between each other or to have some disputes because they are liberal and the liberal democracy and they take all fruits from this free market capitalism and they will not more anything. And this theory, this Soviet collapse, yes, led us to unipolar moment. So it's an era of unprecedented but fundamentally temporary American strategic attitude and dominance. So it was some kind of golden age for America dominance because one of this actor completely was destroyed and collapsed. But America still has a lot of powers and can exert these powers. And this moment called like unipolar moment that was like a golden age of American dominance and American hegemony in the world. But also it raised other questions that pointed Samuel Huntington about clash of civilization. And he says that the illusion of ideological convergence would soon give way to profound cultural civilizational conflict. And he has in some way right. He divided the world into several clusters of civilization and defined civilizations like Anglo-Saxonian civilization, Protestant civilization, Catholic civilization, Orthodox civilization, Buddhism civilization, and China's civilization. China's civilization and Japanese civilization, also Latin America civilizations, also separately. And he thinks that internal actors of this civilization can't conduct any wars between each other, but when we talk about countries from different civilizations, they can conduct the war between each other and start a dispute around a lot of questions. But overall, they can't conduct the war. Okay, and moving next. And unipolar moment of the US. What does it mean? So, McDonaldization and culture. Interesting, yes, concept. Global saturation. America consumer culture branded the globe. So, first of all, it's McDonald's, some companies like Microsoft, some broadcaster like MTV, omnipresent symbols of modernity. Uh, Today, also English definitely consolidated its position as a lingua franca of global business science and diplomacy. So, globally, America saturated other countries by their products that were pointed in McDonald's, like global restaurant distributor, some companies like Microsoft, Apple, IBM, and broadcaster like MTV or CNN that impacted cultures, impacted societies all over the world, and even in 19th of 20th century, some Chinese researcher also warned some threats from this domination that could has negative impact on the values of Chinese society, and they feel they were threatened by all this domination. But that was also a long time. And if we say about some disputes on theoretical level, George Ritzer concept McDonaldization lead us to homogenization through efficiency, calculability, and control. So it means that there are some societies for which are more naturally part of so-called financial world where everything is counted and can be counted, and they call it some kind of McDonaldization. All these processes and all these approaches shared globally on countries that are not naturally um, countries of so-called countries of count book. От я тут, мабуть, ще краще українською поясню. Дивіться, що мається на увазі під цією теорією макдоналізації. Мається на увазі, що фактично традиційно є країни, які більш схильні до ведення економіки, ведення господарства і підрахунку всього. І такі суспільства називаються суспільства бухгалтерської книги, так? Тобто все записується, все враховується і ведеться облік. Але не для всіх країн це притаманно. Наприклад, українського суспільства це не притаманно. І ось ця так звана макдоналізація, вона ж веде фактично і до того, що ці принципи поширюються на інші країни. І це спрощує, наприклад, ведення бізнесу, ведення співпраці, тому що ви говорите на одній мові, ви говорите мовою цифр, мовою аудиту, мовою ринку. І, відповідно, це полегшує таким гравцям ведення будь-яких справ. And Benjamin Barber and Jihad versus Macworld, it's the inevitable tribal local backlash against sterile global integration. So, according to Barber, it creates some backlash, yes, some protest against this new sterile and countable world. Big shift for American forces and for American foreign policy become 9/11 when terror in New York occurred. So after this date, U.S. attention was shifted, or attention and resources to the Middle East. So you can see it now in Trump action, yes, who also recognize the biggest threat in Middle East and also China. Trump also recognized the threat from China, but at the beginning of 21st century, China has no so much power as today, and they were not recognized like natural threat, but natural threat were recognized some countries and feudal organization on the Middle East, and the US started actively fight with all these destroyable movements. The missed window, this occurred precisely as China post-WTO economy growth rapidly accelerated. So it's like a second point of this strategic destruction. US missed the window of hegemon, and this led it of emerging the new global power like the US, oh sorry, like China, and the US couldn't do anything with that. Some costs, it's 2 decades of inconclusive war in Afghanistan and Iraq absorbed trillions of dollars. So the US is famous by their wars all over the world, but war in Iraq and Afghanistan become really devastated for these countries that led it to devastation of the budget. Opportunity cost, resources that might have underwritten domestic renewal or Indo-Pacific position were lost. Okay, Iraq War, why it's important for us? First of all, a normative rupture, the central legitimacy crisis of the unipolar era. Lack of authorization. So is this invasion conducted without UN Security Council authorization on intelligence grounds that proved false? So some bases of international order were under threatened because the US started this operation without any authorization of UN Security Council, and this undermines some legitimacy of this world organization and world order that existed, because other countries think that they can do same things. Like if US can, we also can. And in my opinion, that also lead us to wars that conducted Russia, because they have seen that the main power in the world could conduct themselves as those who started war without any authorization of the UN. So we also can do it. And it was one, like the box of Pandora. Preventive war logic. The Bush administration embrace of preventive war threatened to invert the logic of the very order of the US had built. So US started the new logic. It's like prevention of the war, and that also led to some situation of instability when countries can recognize the power of enter it into the war just because they want to preserve some wars in the future. Privilege taker. The system maker risked becoming what Mastudra calls an unbound privilege taker. Just for your knowing. Global backlash. Yes, Pew Research documented sharp, sustained declines in US favorably internationally from 2003 onward. So all these actions, yes, led it US and what they have some kind of declines, and these declines we are looking also now. Financial crisis, also second turn point for the US dominance, because this crisis started in the US. And what it means, the crisis originated directly within America mortgage markets and was exacerbated by America financial engineering. It also debuted a severe blow to the ideological authority of the Washington Consensus and neoliberal market fundamentalism. You should understand that some kind of neoliberal foundations were uh, under the question because it shows that they can't be powerful product for financial resistance in the future. And the Chinese, from this crisis, took a lesson that they started stimulus stabilized global demand, but Beijing drew a distinct structural lesson. American-style liberal finance was no longer a model to emulate, but a systematic hazard to manage and insulate against. In some way, China started Keynesian. They applied Keynesian theory on their economy when countries' government dominance and present in the economy is stronger than liberal economy predict. Dimension on influence. Why US is still global power? First of all, because all of global money reserves also are in US. Around 59% of global money reserves still mm, st- still possessed by Americans. Also, money transactions are conducted between America and other countries, yes, that has some global trading, and all around 48 SWIFT payments also still conducted by America's citizen, and this show us that economically um, this country is a real world power because the main economical life and transaction happened in US. Also, we weaponized interdependence. We told a lot about Brussels effect, but also some effect could be applicable to the US. For example, Farrell and Newman, they argued that the dollar centrality is a structural platform upon which financial coercion operates. In some way, dollar dependence of other countries led us to the situation when in some way you should pay in dollars and it stimulate America's economy. The Arsenal's DNL's secondary sanction and swift exclusion derived the bite from a structural position that took decades to construct. Maximum extension, the 2022 freezing of Russia's central bank reserves demonstrated the instrument at its absolute peak. Yes, US has still economical power and can impact it on other countries. For example, Russia can't not have so big impact than US. If even they apply any sanction, it means for world nothing. But when US applying any sanction, it could lead to some declining of the economy of the countries that are under the American sanction. Consequence: utilizing the weapon aggressively has drastically accelerated global incentives for financial diversification. It's, I think, quite clear. Just 10 minutes left. I think what we should also discuss. Okay, guys. There are also some explanation of how America forces and America technologies could also lead to some dependence of other countries, and how some legacy regulation can also create some conditions, yes, for cooperation according to America's rules. Maybe I stop demonstration now for one moment.